There is a paradox in life that silently rules over us. The paradox of work and necessity. We believe we work because we must, that necessity binds us like a chain. Yet beneath this chain lies a hidden truth. Work is not merely survival. It is the stage upon which the soul expresses its destiny. To labor only for necessity is to become enslaved by it. But to recognize work as a bridge between inner potential and outer reality is to find meaning. The question is, will you remain a servant to necessity, or will you transform necessity into freedom? Necessity stands before every human being like an unshakable wall. From the moment we awaken into life, we are greeted by its demands. We must work to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to find shelter from the elements. At first glance, necessity feels like an enemy, an invisible force that dictates how we spend our days, chaining us to responsibilities we never asked for. Yet, if one looks more deeply, necessity reveals itself not as an external tyrant, but as the shadow that follows us, showing us where we are weakest, where we resist growth, and where we are called to awaken. The shadow of necessity is not meant to destroy us. It is meant to confront us. When life demands that you earn your bread, that you stand up each morning to meet the world's requirements, you are not simply being burdened, you are being tested. The test is not in whether you can survive, but in whether you can extract meaning from survival itself. Most people view necessity as punishment, believing that they would be free if only they had no obligations. But true freedom does not come from running away from life's demands. True freedom emerges when you learn how to stand in the face of necessity and transform it into something purposeful. Think of necessity as the raw stone given to a sculptor. At first it is rough, heavy, unshaped. It demands effort, patience, and sweat. But within that unshaped mass lies a hidden form waiting to be revealed. So it is with the necessities of life. They may appear harsh, but they contain within them the very possibilities that lead to transformation. The one who leaves from necessity remains forever bound by it, trapped in fear and resentment. The one who confronts it directly begins the process of inner growth, for necessity compels the psyche to awaken powers it would never otherwise discover. Every challenge, every demand, every weight that necessity places upon you is in truth a mirror. It reflects not only what is required of you, but what lies dormant within you. To provide for your needs is not merely a material task. It is a psychological initiation. It forces you to discover resilience, creativity, endurance, and above all, meaning. The paradox is that necessity appears as a chain, but in facing it, you uncover the keys to liberation. Without necessity, most would never awaken from their slumber. It is only when life presses upon you with demands that you are forced to become more than you were yesterday. So when you feel burdened by the necessities of life, pause and consider, is this truly punishment, or is it the shadow inviting you to grow? In every demand lies a hidden possibility, and in every shadow lies the seed of light. Work is so often reduced to the visible tasks of our hands, the endless lists, the daily grind, the pressure of responsibilities. Yet beneath all of this lies something much deeper, something that most people never take the time to see. Work is not simply what you do to survive. It is the ongoing dialogue between your inner being and the outer world. It is the stage upon which your soul slowly shapes itself into wholeness. Each action, no matter how small, is a gesture in the great process of becoming who you are meant to be. When you approach work without reflection, it feels like mere repetition, a dull rhythm that drains you. But when you begin to see work as the mirror of your own psyche, everything changes. In every task lies the possibility of individuation, the process of integrating the fragmented parts of yourself into a unified whole. Work challenges you, not only because it demands time and effort, but because it reflects the unconscious drives and desires within you. The way you respond to your work reveals whether you live passively, letting life push you around, or whether you engage consciously, shaping yourself through the act of creation. There is an invisible thread that ties your inner world to the outer tasks of life. You may think you are simply building, writing, cooking, designing, or teaching, But in truth, you are giving form to aspects of your psyche. The order you bring to your labor mirrors the order you are trying to bring to your soul. The patience you practice in your tasks reflects the patience you cultivate with yourself. Even your frustrations at work are signals from the unconscious, urging you to notice the parts of yourself that resist discipline, that crave freedom, or that fear inadequacy. To work is to enter into dialogue with all of these voices within you. If you pay attention, you will realize that no task is meaningless. Even the smallest effort carries the potential to reshape you. What you build with your hands builds you in return. When you create something with intention, you are not only changing the world outside, you are also transforming the structure of your inner being. Work, then, is not a punishment placed upon humanity. It is the crucible in which the self is formed. Without it, the psyche would remain scattered, drifting, never grounded in reality. With it, the psyche learns to express itself, to test its limits, and to grow into something greater. So never mistake work for mere necessity. It is the instrument through which you become whole. Every moment you labor with awareness, you step closer to the realization of who you truly are. When a man gives himself to work only for the sake of survival, he enters into a cycle that quietly erodes his spirit. Day after day, he repeats the same motions, chasing after food, shelter, and safety, but never asking himself why he labors or what it all means. Survival becomes his sole compass, and though his body endures, his soul begins to wither. There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot heal, an emptiness that no wage can fill. To work only so that one may live another day is to reduce life to a dull mechanical pattern, stripping it of its richness and purpose. The human psyche was not designed to thrive in such barrenness. Deep within, there is a restless energy, a hunger for more than bread alone. The unconscious cries out for meaning, for significance, for connection to something greater than the mere continuation of existence. This is why those who work without purpose often feel a gnawing dissatisfaction, even when their needs are met. They sense, perhaps dimly, that they are capable of more, that survival cannot be the highest aim of life. To confine the human spirit to survival alone is to insult its vast potential. And yet, the paradox is clear. Survival cannot be ignored. Necessity calls. Bills must be paid. Food must be placed on the table. But to confuse necessity with the totality of life is the error that binds countless people in silent misery. The psyche rebels against this narrowing of existence, pushing through with dreams, with longings, with flashes of dissatisfaction that demand attention. What many call frustration with their work is, in truth, the soul's protest against living without meaning. It is not the labor itself that wounds us, but the absence of vision behind it. The way out of this trap is not to reject work or to fantasize about escaping necessity. The way out is to recognize that even within the demands of survival, meaning can be found and cultivated. A man who tills the soil merely to eat may find his spirit languishing, but a man who tills the soil, knowing that he is nurturing life itself, awakens a different energy within. The difference lies in the gaze with which he approaches his labor. One gaze sees chains, the other sees the possibility of creation. Thus survival is not enough. The spirit demands that your work serve something beyond the next meal, beyond the next bill. You must ask yourself not only, how shall I live, but why do I live? What does my labor mean in the shaping of my soul and in the shaping of the world? Without this, survival remains a prison. With it, even the smallest task becomes a step toward transcendence. To escape the trap of survival, you must dare to search for meaning within the very work necessity imposes. Discipline is often misunderstood. To many, it appears as a chain, a burden, something that strips life of spontaneity and joy. It feels restrictive, like a rigid rule imposed from outside, pressing down on one's natural desires. And yet, when seen through the deeper lens of the psyche, discipline is not a prison at all. It is the very doorway to freedom. For without discipline, necessity overpowers you. Without discipline, the demands of life weigh you down and scatter your energy. But with discipline, something miraculous happens. You begin to master necessity itself, and in that mastery, freedom quietly reveals itself. Freedom does not mean the absence of demand. Life will never grant you that. Bills will arrive, responsibilities will call, challenges will appear. To imagine a life without them is to chase an illusion that ends only in disappointment. True freedom arises when you can meet necessity with strength, when you can stand before the demands of life and say, I will not be crushed. I will shape this into something that serves me. That strength is born of discipline. Every time you rise in the morning when you would rather lie in bed, every time you complete a task with intention instead of avoidance, you are reclaiming authority over your life. Discipline does not remove necessity, but it transforms how you relate to it. Without discipline, necessity feels like compulsion, as though you are dragged unwillingly into each day's demands. With discipline, you begin to act from choice. You turn necessity into a conscious decision, an act of will. The difference between being driven by life and driving your own life lies here. Discipline gives you the steering wheel. It places you in the role of master, rather than servant. And though discipline feels difficult at first, its fruits are undeniable. The psyche begins to find stability where there was once chaos. The inner world aligns itself, for discipline is not just about external actions, but about shaping the soul itself. Each small act of order you bring to your day echoes inward, strengthening your capacity to hold yourself together in the face of life's storms. Where there is discipline, there is resilience. Where there is discipline, there is clarity. And where there is discipline, there is the freedom to rise above the noise of necessity and discover meaning. The paradox is clear. What seems like limitation is actually liberation. The one who avoids discipline is forever enslaved by impulses, by circumstances, by the weight of necessity itself. The one who embraces discipline, though appearing constrained, moves with strength and freedom, because he has learned to master himself. This is why the soul whispers for discipline. It is not punishment but power. Freedom is not the absence of necessity, it is the mastery of it. There is a profound difference between labor that is performed merely to pass time, and labor that is carried by meaning. Both may look the same from the outside, the same hours spent, the same movements of the hands, the same outward results. But within, the experience could not be more different. Work without meaning corrodes the soul, slowly draining vitality until a person begins to feel like a machine repeating motions. It leaves one weary, restless, and disconnected from life itself. But when labor is infused with meaning, the same work is transformed into a source of strength. It becomes an alchemy, where something greater is born out of the simplest acts. The key lies in perception. You may face a task that feels dull, heavy, and unavoidable. If you see it as mere duty, you will find it empty. But if you choose to see it as part of a greater whole, it begins to carry weight that nourishes rather than destroys. The mother who cooks for her children may see only the endless cycle of meals and cleaning, or she may see that each act of preparation is an expression of love that sustains life. The craftsman who sands a piece of wood may see it as tedious repetition, or he may see it as part of a larger creation that will one day carry beauty and purpose into the world. Meaning is not in the task itself, it is in the eye that beholds the task. And this truth is not confined to noble professions or lofty callings. Every form of work has the capacity to carry meaning, if one dares to approach it with consciousness. Even the most ordinary labor becomes elevated when it is connected to a higher purpose. To work with meaning is to recognize that each effort is not wasted, but woven into the larger fabric of life. The dignity of work does not come from how society ranks it, but from the meaning the individual infuses into it. The unconscious longs for this infusion of meaning, because without it, a person is left adrift. The psyche cannot endure the emptiness of endless labor done without purpose. It rebels, it numbs itself, or it collapses into despair. This is why burnout spreads not from effort itself, but from the sense that effort is meaningless. The spirit can endure great demands if it knows they matter. Meaning acts as fuel for the soul, turning burden into devotion repetition into ritual, and labor into creation. So the invitation is simple yet profound. Do not allow your work to remain a chain. Ask yourself, what part of me is being expressed here? What deeper purpose am I serving? When you answer with sincerity, your labor ceases to be a demand of necessity and becomes an act of becoming. Through meaning, necessity becomes not your master, but your servant. The tension between work and necessity often appears to us as a kind of battle. On one side, necessity presses down with its relentless weight, demanding that we act, that we provide, that we meet the conditions of survival. On the other side, work stretches out before us as the daily effort through which we carry those demands. At first, these two forces feel opposed. Necessity compels, while work feels like the burdened response. But the deeper truth is that they are not enemies at all. They are partners in a paradox that, when understood, can be transformed into a path of freedom. Necessity by itself is crushing. If all you see is the endless list of obligations, the bills, the hunger, the demands of time and responsibility, then life feels heavy and joyless. Work, too, when viewed without meaning, seems like nothing more than obedience to this force. But if you allow yourself to see beyond the surface, a shift occurs. Necessity is not only a chain, it is a guide. It directs you to act, to move, to step into life rather than withdraw from it. And work is the tool through which you respond, the way you turn necessity into something more than mere survival. The one who refuses necessity dreams of a freedom without demands, but that dream is hollow. Life will always insist on requirement. The path to liberation is not to escape them, but to meet them consciously, transforming what could enslave you into what refines you. Work is the bridge. Through work you take necessity into your hands and shape it. It is no longer an external force crushing you, but raw material that you can mold. This is why the paradox dissolves when you change your perspective. Work is not a punishment delivered by necessity. It is the very means through which necessity becomes meaningful. Imagine two people facing the same demand. One resents it, feeling trapped and bitter. The other embraces it, turning effort into creation, finding purpose in the process. The same necessity, the same task, but two entirely different destinies. Freedom lies not in removing the demand, but in how you meet it. The psyche longs for this reconciliation. To live in conflict with necessity is to live in quiet despair, feeling always pushed, never choosing. But to accept necessity and pour yourself consciously into work is to discover a kind of inner peace. You are no longer at war with life. You are cooperating with it. What once felt like chains now feels like direction. What once felt like burden now feels like creation. The paradox of work and necessity resolves itself when you see that the chain that binds you is the same chain that leads you forward. When you embrace necessity and elevate your work with meaning, you no longer labor as a servant, you labor as a creator.